Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello. So this is episode 1 of a podcast that is tentatively called Put the Bucket in the Bucket. And we don't have a plan. So this is going to unfold live, as it were. And so my name is Gareth, and I'm joined by Noel.
Hello.
And we wanted to put together a podcast, or at least maybe record our discussions. And as far as I'm aware, that's as far as we got with it. I don't know,
Well,
Noel, if you had a
My
different
side
view.
of the story is you sent me a message saying, "Do you want to be in my podcast?" I wrote back, "Yes," and that's it. So the "we" here is tenuous at best.
Yeah,
So perhaps you can help me out by explaining what "put the bucket in the bucket" means.
right.
Or maybe what's the goal of name, like why? What would the goal of naming the podcast be? Like, what do you want people to know? And why does "put the bucket in the bucket" fulfill that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I think put the bucket in the bucket is obscure enough that people won't know what it means because, it's odd. But presumably through the course of the many series we're going to do, it will become obvious what it means.
Okay, but I mean, the title is there to help people to understand what it is, isn't it? Like, that's the initial hook. Is like, what's that? Why do you want to obscure? Why don't you just say exactly? Like, if you could say exactly what this podcast is, what is it?
I mean, it's going to be an unfolding of us talking about things. That's what it'll be. What it gives people is really up to them.
No, I don't. I don't care what it gives people, guys. Like, there's nobody out there. You know that. So, like, those people, name one of them.
Me.
Exactly. So we're off to a bad start.
Name another one.
You.
Why did you want to be on this podcast?
You asked me, and you're my brother. So, and I have had the overwhelming desire for you to understand me for as long as I can remember. And amongst other deep desires that you have no reference to or ability to even fulfill. Not because of any lacking on your side, but because let's call it a hole in me that cannot be filled. And I find myself in the throes of ego exhaustion, trying to convince you of things. And I always feel like we've both been extremely adept at world building. And what I'd say our relationship has been world building together. to give ourselves a sense of security in lives that have not known emotional safety. So in the physical world, we've been relatively safe. But in the emotional space, we've been extremely unsafe. And that's manifested very differently between the two of us over the last 40-ish years. And we both have had awakening experiences in the last 4 years. Of two very different flavors, two very different journeys, and even how we got there was very different, and how we've flirted with awakening our whole lives, as everyone ultimately does, which is another realization that you have, is like, it's always been there. I've always been staring right at it. And somehow I've been telling myself the truth the whole time. And that realization, coupled with, let's say, the death of trying to do that world building anymore, leaves us with the residuals. And this podcast for me is I see it as rooting out the residuals, scraping the bottom of the bucket and trying to drill a few more holes in it and emptying it out.
Interesting.
And then seeing that there is no bucket, and then just be left with oblivion while still navigating whatever this is. So that's why I agreed to do this with you, Gaz, because I want it to end. I'm kind of starting this with you because this is the end. And we can tell stories about how the end came to pass and explore elements of it. But also guiding each other and finding guides to help us get to the end of it would be lovely. Like, I want this to end. Like, it's not over yet for me. And I want it to be.
Yeah, I'm just letting that sink in. So you have a goal. You have a concrete goal that you've articulated. And thank you for articulating that and making that concrete. I think of course, I know what you're talking about, and anyone who happens to listen to this may be intrigued by what you've alluded to. I kind of feel like I can certainly have a role to play in that goal of yours.
Yeah.
And that can definitely be a goal of my own, to facilitate the drilling of the holes.
Can I just ask who you're talking to?
I'm trying to find a place for myself in this.
Okay. Right.
And I just love the analogy of drilling holes in the bottom of the bucket to drain it, to find the residuals and empty the bucket. And you said that this is the end. And then you described the process of emptying the bucket to reach another end. It felt like there were two ends, or there's the end as a process. And I was just wondering what you meant by that.
Well, sometimes, sometimes it feels like a process. Sorry, I got hay fever. I don't know. I wouldn't hold on too much about whether it's residuals or holes in buckets or whatever. Like, I wouldn't hold on to that too much, because the distance, like, I don't like realizing that creating distance between nothingness and whatever state you are convincing yourself in right now is like another protection mechanism. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Although it's nice. It's nice, like, it's nice to explore analogies to try and reach the root of the intent. Or even saying things like, I want this to end. It's like, it's just another sort of, like, you have to construct this for this to be over. So what do I mean by that? Actually, fuck all. What I can say is that my awakening journey has felt a lot like another analogy, a yo-yo. So I went from being a guy struggling out there in the world, feeling in some sense like failure, having all of the regular experiences of life, and circumstances brought things to a point where everything dropped away. And it's like deep into stillness and quiet and fullness and seeing emptiness. You've called it oblivion, I think. For me, oblivion is almost too complicated a word, or I can't really grasp that. For me, the word is emptiness or nothingness. Like I said, the gap between this experience and that nothingness is zero. So where's the distance? Like, there's nothing really for you to facilitate that.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's like finding your space in it is also kind of distance to it, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, as soon as I said it, I was like, why do I need to fill this container? Because where does this container come from?
Yeah.
Like, why do I need to find my place in what? Like, as soon as I said it, it was just. So I guess it's an understanding thing.
You make your microphone a little bit closer to you.
Is that better?
No.
Okay. Maybe I just talk louder. I'll just talk louder.
Okay.
Yeah, I find it. I mean, right? We've got world building,
Yeah.
which is a great way of saying that's like a great heading. We've got emotional safety. So I'm just doing a recap. Emotional safety. We've got enlightenment journey. I'd like to put in there healing journey and put the word healing in. That's certainly something, a way of articulating parts of this thing that we're alluding to. Then I've got the difference between oblivion and emptiness, which is something that you picked up on. Because, I mean, words, mean different things to different people and come with baggage. So, so for me, the idea of emptiness somehow exists in conjunction with the word fullness. So you can have something that's full and then you can empty it. And there's like a process.
Yeah.
Whereas oblivion is neither full nor empty. Like those, for me, is like those concepts can't apply. It doesn't have those concepts in it, or of it, or next to it, or.
Should we talk about what happened to you the other day?
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe my role in that and how I facilitated you. Because I'd be curious.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, this is it, right? So, I recorded you a message over Signal while I was, I'm just trying to get the date, 2nd of June, right? So it's only a few days ago. And I was walking outside, walking home. And my mind was just very quietly chewing something over about, so what was physically happening was there was a storm coming over. So I'm just setting the scene. There was a storm coming over. It was raining. And I was walking along just in a shirt, getting soaked. And there were some warning lights flashing. I live near a lake and there were warning lights flashing to signal that the boats needed to go in. And I guess I was I'd become very aware that there was a storm and there was a warning. And I was also aware that I was in this situation. I was getting wet.
Mm-hmm.
And the lights were flashing. I could see them. I was being asked to heed warning and enter that worldview. Whereas I felt that there was no storm. There was no warning. There was nothing to be warned about. And then it just hit me that what I was seeing in front of me was a manifestation of total oblivion. And it went from storm to oblivion. Just like that.
So
I
hang on a
can't
minute.
really.
You saw warning, but the warning was for something that wasn't there. and then your nervous system somehow clocked. Can I rephrase it and tell me if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Because how I hear that is not just like obviously what happened, but it's like the storm is not there. The warning of the storm is there. The feeling of the warning for the storm is there. The prediction of storm is there, but there is no storm there. And just like this, it's kind of if that's correct, I'm doing it from my perspective because that's very much like it sounds so straightforward and stupid, almost in a way, but it's just really sitting in my body is reacting to something that isn't there.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that, but you get closer to how it was. So it was like, yeah, and I see it clearer now as well. So I was walking up the hill and I was getting wet, and then I was thinking, oh, the storm doesn't really apply to me because I don't mind if I get wet. Therefore, there may as well not be a storm because it just doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
And then the warning lights, and I was like, well, the warning lights are about a storm, and the storm doesn't apply to me. Therefore, the warning lights don't apply to me. And anyway, I'm not a ship on the lake. So I'm not impacted by the storm. I'm also not a ship on the lake, and it's kind of got this self-referential loop. And I was like, and then I'm like, well, so if the storm doesn't apply to me and the warning doesn't apply to something that doesn't apply to me, therefore oblivion. It was just like,
there isn't
anything. It just very quickly snowballed to oblivion. Like there was like, it wasn't a logical step.
No,
it was
no, it can't be.
It was just like, I just didn't see my role in any of it.
Yeah.
And then I was just gone. I was like, this is the infinite oblivion of nothing. And it's completely full of everything.
It's funny how you say that because like you and your role in things seems to be a thing.
So that was that. And it was a huge relief.
Yeah.
It was a huge relief. And it was, I mean, I used the word role, but in the sense of, it's like, well, the warning lights are there because they have a meaning. They have a role. And if you see it, you are therefore playing the other side of that role to recognize that there is a warning. You know what I mean? It's not like...
Yeah.
Because they're designed to show warning. So if you see it, you're playing a role as the observer of a warning. So just like...
You can question the existence of flashing lights and what that means.
But just within the space of everyday life, they're designed for that purpose. So I used the word role.
You've gotten quieter, Kat.
With that meaning. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Didn't change
Need a different setup because that's a bit distracting how quiet you are.
Okay. I'll get new headphones. So that was how that just played out. And then I really wept a lot. Really, really wept. Because it was just so clear that this is it. This is it. We both studied physics, right? Spent a lot of time thinking about the vastness of the universe. But, or these kind of things, So from my point of view, I was like, well, you can look into the night sky and you can get some feeling for the vastness. Because I'm using the word oblivion, and it is somehow connected to a kind of it had an element of size to it, of like complete unknown volume,
Mm.
and as totally distinct from looking up to the night sky. Completely different. So looking up at the night sky, it's kind of like, is it big? Like,
Well, that's also like vision versus thought.
exactly.
And so when I was studying physics 25 years ago, 20-ish, you would see things and you would have a perspective on them, or you'd have a point of view of them. And that point of view has faded over time. And so looking at the night sky today for me isn't quite as, I mean, whether it's awe-inspiring or not, or whether like what thoughts are attached to that, like, oh, there's that star, there's that. Like the other week, there was a bright star in the sky. My wife said, "Oh, what's that one?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Venus." She was like, "How do you know?" I was like, "I don't know, just it's just I just think it's Venus." I got an app, one that you can point at the sky, and there it was, Venus. Like something in me knew that it was Venus based on previous knowledge. But the openness, and that can trigger obviously a sense of like, wow, everything's so big stuff, and this kind of visceral feeling of openness. So I think the openness that you describe is like a relaxation of the senses, and let's say an unwinding of a knot. And when the knot's unwound, it's like a tension in the body. It's almost a feeling of exposure. It's a feeling of almost vulnerability. I feel like in that openness, that vastness of experience is a physical sensation that is not linked to a thought.
Yeah.
But the thought can come, holy shit, like, whoa, like, I feel like sometimes it has felt to me like there's a knife right here on my gut. Like, I just feel like there's almost like imminent, vulnerable danger in a way, but like it's more like this feeling of vulnerability, like being completely open, completely open. And like having the knife at my gut is a visual representation of like that kind of like openness feeling.
Interesting. Yeah. What I'd like to add there is so this particular experience of mine wasn't there wasn't a step through anything that was conscious on my side around what other side would it be? But anyway, well, I know, but anyway, that's another thing. Yeah, well, I wasn't conscious of there being like a negative emotion or negative bodily feeling, or let's say there being something in the way. Let's just say that I wasn't aware that there was being something in the way. But then when the realization came, it was like a filter went, and it was like, oh, I don't need this filter. I don't need this overlay. So, and then there was the relief, the weeping, the unfolding of the knot, but it wasn't like a physical knot, like a pain, and then it was released. It was I don't know where it was.
Yeah.
So there's that. But what I also wanted to say was, your observation of the knife and the physical manifestation, let's say the pain and you linked it to the word vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Super, super important topic that we should definitely talk more about.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I've had my own experiences, heavy experiences in that department over the years, which then will probably link us back to emotional security. So for me, this one experience that I shared from a few days ago is, I mean, you know this, but coming at the end of, well, at the end, is it the end? Who knows? But coming after many years of this kind of healing or spiritual or however you want to call it, unfolding kind of journey into new things, one of which is emotional security, and one of which as well, linking back to that, like, let's say, a new relationship to the idea of world building. I would say not throwing away world building, but it's certainly a new relationship with that kind of set of concepts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for you now, these feelings of vulnerability, how's that linked to emotional security for you and moving through that?
I don't know. Vulnerability and emotional security.
Yeah.
Right now, it's more like, yeah, there's that. Right now, there's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of sadness right now, which is okay. Vulnerability, I guess, is in there. So what's coming up is what's coming up for me today is just because I have a label on a bottle, and I put that label on the bottle the other day just because a child of mine gave me the label, and the bottle was sitting right there, and I was like, "That's my bottle. I'm going to label it so everyone knows it's mine." And I have found myself in the last couple of months establishing new labeling, I would guess, is the best way of putting it. Establishing new, exploring new things to do, or rather things that I used to do that I don't do any, that I haven't done in a long time just because of small children and house moves and jobs and all sorts of stuff. Just starting doing things again after a period of, let's say, having a smaller world with two small children and all sorts of things. So that is bringing up a lot of loneliness, a lot of feeling of loneliness. And also I'm noticing that I'm searching for connection, but I'm addicted to the search. So I'm looking for I might join a running group, but when I go there, I don't talk to anyone. Or, and I'm just sitting there in the loneliness, and I'm observing myself just being lonely there in a way that I always have done. I've always felt like I've always been looking for connection and then stopping short somehow. And then sitting in that feeling of like there's a barrier here. It's not like all the time. It's not always. Sometimes everything, like, you're chatting to people and everything's fine, and sometimes you're just busy and you got to get on or whatever. But like, I've just noticed in the last days that I'm kind of establishing space, exploring fear and loneliness, and not really knowing what to do with it. And I'm just trying to get curious about it, seeing what rather than just experiencing it and trying to disassociate and push it away and, do all the things that you do to not look at it, and trying to turn towards it. But I don't really know how right now. It's not really giving me any clues as to what, or if it is, it's probably screaming clues to my face, but I'm ignoring them somehow. Like, what is this? Seeking without finding. I guess my process has been many things over the last few years, but one of them that I really enjoy is journaling and word playing with things. So, like, trying to step into the emotion and seeking without wanting to actually have, sitting in the feeling of wanting. Maybe it's the waiting to be chosen. So that's what I'm doing too. Like, but for that kind of stuff, I'd want us to have like a podcast about it. You know what I mean? Or not. It's okay. Like, us doing it now feels a bit messy.
Yeah. Well, all of this is messy.
It's
But
all,
what we're doing,
clearly there's no control, and that's okay too.
this is completely unstructured, clearly, and that was a given from the outset. But I think what we're doing here is we're collecting things that we can then structure around.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's all good.
Without identifying too much with having to be the one who structures everything.
Yeah.
It has to control.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, that's like, I'm happy to go all the way on that one. Just not now. Later.
No, fair enough. I've got loads of stuff on that. I've got loads of stuff on these topics as well, as you know. So we can just let them unfold in a more structured way in later episodes. So I think like some stuff that came up for me while you were sharing was like, you're exploring emotional space, right? You shared that, and there's journaling, there's going to running groups and the running group and labeling things,
taking
ownership. So this is clearly, you've entered into this phase from a phase that wasn't like this. Is that right? Has something changed?
Oh, I
Like,
don't I don't know. If I say yes, then it becomes something to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't. I don't care. It's just
Okay.
what's here now.
Right.
Like, what's changed? I don't know. Like, stuff comes up, you don't know why it's there, and like spending time worrying about why it's here is world building. And I don't care that much about that. Why is just why is like the pregnant question. So sadness. What was I saying? Sadness.
Sadness that you didn't
Oh yeah,
want
so
to sit with.
sadness. Like, let's say, like there's a sadness that has been, let's say, unlocked, and there's thoughts that are associated with that sadness of loneliness and confusion and fear and sitting and waiting, and like there's a lot there, and then there's reactions to it, which is an attempt to establish what's mine, and simple things like a bottle, and what's not mine. Also, what's not mine is just as important as what is mine, and what I can take with me and what I can't. And I think the psychology of it for me has been that. Like, and so it's manifesting in lots of activities. I see a little face. It's manifesting in lots of activities, like going swimming again after years, or wanting to take the kids swimming more often, and just finding a way to do that. So lots of behaviors are manifesting and trying to sort of hold on to things. And let go of things. And I know I can let those things happen, which is all good stuff, right? That's all fine. Like, what I'm doing out there in the world is, let's say, normal behavior. But there's the other side, which is like, okay, let's get curious about, these actions, this sadness. Is there a belief? Well, obviously there's belief, but what's the belief? Where's the core of it? How is it entered into? Like, what angles can I come at it with? And sometimes it's a complete surprise. Sometimes it goes away and then comes back later because it's not fully integrated or manifested or whatever it is. Sometimes it's not allowed to have the space. Sometimes circumstances mean that going that far is just not ready for it yet. And the mind says, I can't take this. I don't want this. And I guess that's why creating space is the thing that the mind seems to think it needs. But it's also the other side of the coin of a mind that wasn't giving itself space. That was staying safe in staying at home and doing the washing. Or I've got stuff to do in the garden, or I've got stuff to do, And going out there felt like running away. And maybe that's what that is. Right? I don't want to leave. I don't want to be the one that leaves the responsibility. That feels like a childhood trauma. Because it doesn't necessarily need to have anything to do with what's happening right now. You know?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And this is a huge thing for me that I definitely want to talk about on this podcast. We've got, how do you make emotional space for yourself? How do you know where you're not making emotional space for yourself?
Yeah.
That's the other side. How do you know you're not making emotional space? Because you can go from input, get triggered, do something like that. And that's who you are. But you didn't make any emotional space. And making that emotional space can feel like falling into a black hole.
Yeah.
And that is why your mind does not want to do it.
Yeah.
But
it's more fun if you do. Jump.
Well, it's healing if you do.
Yeah.
In a way that makes sense for you. But you're coming, or at least in my case, was coming at it from a point of unconsciousness. So how do you know? How do you find this out? The thing you're not conscious of, how do you become conscious of it? How do you even
see
know
the
where
thing
these...
you don't want to see?
Yeah, exactly. And how do you feel the thing you've never allowed yourself to feel?
Exactly.
Because you know it's horror.
Yeah, but coming back to it being more fun, I think one thing that I'm not, like a few things that I don't know you've experienced or not. Like I don't know. But I certainly have, is phenomenology. And what I mean by that is when things unwind, there are surprising things that happen or rather surprising things that stop happening in your perception that are so wonderful and magical and scary sometimes that it's just such a surprise. So emotion work is like fundamental, obviously, but you can do it from the point of view of, and the thing is that emotion work for me led to this, the phenomenology, which I'll talk about in a moment. But so you don't necessarily need to worry about it, but you can also access all of this via phenomenology work. And what I mean by that is perception of distance, perception of time, perception of color and space and movement and hearing, and I presume touch and taste and smell, but that hasn't, as far as I'm aware, been obvious enough to me in places where I could notice it. Like I haven't eaten anything while being in a state and then realized that the taste comes after somehow. It's like a layer of thought. But I've certainly seen distance being a layer of thought. and motion being a layer of thought, and sound, distance to noise being a layer of thought. So like sound and seeing being from your eyes being some strangely a layer of thought. So like phenomenology, I think, is a fun one, because I don't really know how to access it, frankly, but I can talk about how I have done it in the past, or when it's happened by accident through emotion work, even when the emotion work itself was an accident. And how I've done it, at least in the visual field, once or twice, and come close to it. But I think for me to be able to get there, it seems like I need quite a lot of physical quiet and space to do it.
Okay. So let me just recap that, because it feels like it's a bit of a bigger topic, in the sense that it's like, so you mentioned the emotional work, and then you said you can kind of access something that you can get through the emotional work, also through the phenomenology of our senses.
Yeah.
And then you described the phenomenology of our senses in a way that spoke to me of realizing we are not our senses.
Okay.
You know, when in the way you said, well, distance before thought. So like you perceive the distance and then you have the thought, and it's like,
no,
they're different things. Oh, that's not.
No, you see your mind constructing distance, and you see what there is there in your field of vision before your mind constructs the distance.
Right.
So
Okay.
imagine a little invisible elf coming onto the scene, enter stage left, and constructing distance. Like it's almost like out of what's there, and
Right.
kind of feels like you are somehow visually and physically pushing what you see out there. It's almost like, like in ancient times where they used to think, who knows what people used to think, but they had drawings of light coming out of people's eyes.
Yeah.
And like seeing things because light's coming from your eyes.
Yeah.
I had the idea the other day that it's kind of like that. It's like you're pushing the picture out there.
Yeah.
And when you stop doing that,
Okay.
when you literally just try and go into the sensation of and pushing a picture out there, somehow, like it's almost like a physical feeling in your body that you just kind of try and relax, like you try and relax a muscle. Sometimes you're tense, you're like, oh god, I didn't realize that was tense, and then you just relax it, and it's like, oh, it's almost like that, and it just goes, or it just starts kind of phasing.
Right.
It's like there, and then it's here, and then it's there, and then it's here.
Okay. So we've
run
got
the other week. It's only happened for like 2 minutes, but
it's fascinating. So we've got like, it feels like then this is the process, observing the process of your mind creating something, from either creating directly the emotion or sitting behind the emotion, seeing it bubble up, and then seeing the mind create the story around the emotion. I feel this because of that thing that happened out there.
Oh, that's like, I feel like that might be even several abstractions later. Like the ownership of the need. I don't know what order it happens in, but my assumption is it's like brain gets the signal,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Consciousness, whatever you want to call that, because you could even say consciousness is, let's say, a mind object. I think, I don't know, like that's whatever, it doesn't matter. Like awareness, let's call it, sees,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a full body reaction to that seeing, like the whole body, like if you kind of imagine like everything I'm experiencing right now, even the sadness or whatever it is, or excitement or happiness, whatever, or just fear, is that seeing. And you open the aperture, like it's a full open aperture, and then the screws start to tighten, like the fear is experienced, like what the hell is that, and then the mind pushes it away to push it out there to deal with the horror of direct experience. Like, I don't know, it sometimes feels like fear or horror or just that feeling like the knife is there, right? And it's like, I don't want this feeling, like this is too much. It's too much information. Like, and all the information is pushed out and filtered, and then you're like tree, green, leaf. That's what I'm seeing out the window. Bird, sky, like all of that comes afterwards, and it's like the labeling happens simultaneously with the filtering out of everything and the pushing away, and then within that somewhere Noel is created in order to label everything. And then you can construct the story. And then it's like, that tree's only there to make me feel happy. I'm happy in nature. It's just a thought. It's a construction. It's an ownership of something out there that you construct. Nature, me, happiness, being in it, being out of it. Like, I know in the relative world, like, I know what it means to be like you don't have to quibble, you don't have to argue about what the meaning of those words means. It's just seeing the mind constructing those ideas and why it's doing it. And not walking away from that.
Especially difficult in the context of what you were talking about before, when you have emotions and patterns from the past overlaid on top of this. So the construction in the here and now is built upon patterns from the past, which muddy the waters, let's just say, or provide
Apparently.
unexpected nuance to the. I say nuance, but the way I've experienced this has been extreme bodily pain and horror. So sometimes it's not nuanced at all. And to be honest, just probably for the sake of, maybe we should start wrapping up, but I think also for future episodes, we have to talk about death. We have to talk about, or I would like to talk about death. I would like to talk about life. I would like to talk about trapped emotions. I want to use those words. And then I would also, we have to talk about your enlightenment experiences and my other enlightenment experiences, and also horror experiences.
Panic attacks. I've only had one. I don't know. Yeah, I'd say one sort of out there in the wild. So yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Self-expression and means of connecting with these dynamics. You mentioned the word connection. It's kind of the space you're in at the moment, and what it is you're trying to connect with in the end. Like where is the connection, and then actually made as you follow through on that path? What actually happens? And then we see where this takes us in exploring these ideas.
Every Sunday at 2:00.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll
yeah.
see.
Let's try and do it. Yeah.
Okay. Bye.